Poetry, a powerful tool for managing dependencies and packaging in your Python projects. In this video, we're going to cover everything from creating a new project to managing dependencies and more. So let's get right into it. So first up, before you install Poetry, make sure you have pip. You can do this by doing python-m ensure pip --upgrade. If you are on Linux or Mac, you might have to do Python 3, but just go ahead and run this command to make sure you have pip. And once that's installed, you can then type python-m pip install --user pipx. And we will use pipx to install Poetry globally while still isolating it in a virtual environment. And since pip is already installed here, we don't have to do this way, we can just do this. And if you're on Mac or Linux, you might have to do pip3 install. All right, and I already have it installed. And so now that pipx is installed, we will go ahead and run a command python-m pipx ensure path. And this will make sure that we can run pipx in the command line. So mine's already in the path. And if you are on Mac or Linux, there's another command you can run to make pipx used in the global scope. So once we have that installed, we can then type pipx install Poetry. Go ahead and run that. I already have it installed, but I will go ahead and install it for you. If you ever need to upgrade Poetry, you can do pipx upgrade Poetry. And this will go ahead and upgrade to the latest version for you. Then if you ever need to remove Poetry, you can just do pipx uninstall Poetry. And now that we've got Poetry installed, let's create a new Python project using Poetry. And the simplest way we can do that is saying Poetry new and then our project name. So in this case, it's YouTube project, and just press enter. And this will go ahead and set up our project structure. It did create a folder for our tests and a folder for the main part of our code. It did also create a pyproject.toml file, which will have configuration for our project. You can specify your project name here, the version, description, any authors, so if you want to put yourself here or it automatically put yourself, and the README location. Any dependencies we add through Poetry will be added below here. And currently I have a Python dependency of at least 3.11. And then some other configuration for Poetry. And then take a look at the README file, it is empty. And you can populate this with what you need. If you want the name of your project to be different than the folder that your project is in, you can do this by adding the -- name flag and then the name of the folder. So in this case, I will go ahead and delete this. And we'll go ahead and run this new command. It has been created, so let's check out the folder structure. And we can see that it has tutorial folder as the name we specified here. If you are familiar with the source folder from other kinds of tooling, you can do that through Poetry just by adding the --src flag. So go ahead and run this. It creates our project, and we have a source folder here with all of our stuff inside. The -- name option is smart enough to detect namespaced packages and create the required structure for you. So in this case, doing my.package will create a folder structure of my with a folder package inside. We could put this YouTube project before the --src flag or after, it doesn't really matter. But if we go ahead and run this command, it has created our folder. We can see we have the source folder, my, and then package folders as what we have right here. Something else to note is if you are creating a Python package to distribute, you can leave the toml file as it is. But if you're just using Poetry for dependency management, you can add this package mode = false here under the tool.poetry part of your toml file. If you already have a project and you want to start using Poetry, you can initialize it with Poetry Init. So here I'm in a folder with an app.py. I just want to add Poetry to the existing project already. Go ahead and press enter. And this command will guide you through a setup wizard where you can specify the project's metadata and any additional dependencies. If you just press enter, it'll just put whatever's inside these brackets. So once you go through that, it will create the pyproject.toml file. And you can see it's just like what we saw before. And again, you can add this package mode = false if you're only using this for dependencies. If you want to initialize Poetry in a project without going through the interaction, you can type Poetry init --no -interaction and press enter. And then it goes ahead and creates it for you. Now that your project is set up, we can talk about installing dependencies. If you've already defined dependencies inside your pyproject.toml file, you can install them simply by running Poetry install. This will read all the dependencies inside your pyproject.toml file and installs it into a virtual environment. Poetry will also create a poetry.lock file, which locks the versions of the installed packages, ensuring consistency across different environments. If you want to synchronize your environment, ensuring that your environment contains exactly the dependencies specified in these files, download missing dependencies, and remove any packages that are installed but no longer listed as dependencies. We can use the -- sync option. If you need to add a new package, you can do it really easily with Poetry just by simply doing poetry add and the package name. So in this case, I want to add request. We'll go ahead and press enter. And then we'll go ahead and install all the dependencies we need for that library. So if we go ahead and check out our pyproject.toml file, we can see the request is now here with version 2.32.3. And if we take a look at our poetry.lock file, we can see it has generated quite a bit of stuff, but this just shows all the dependencies we need for our project. Just doing the add command like this will let Poetry choose a suitable package based on the available package versions. If you want to ensure you always get the latest package, you can do @latest at the very end. You can use this little caret symbol with a version number to allow the package to be updated for any versions that doesn't change this first number. So if this now has 0.2 or 0.3, you can automatically update. Or even if it has 2.1, 2.5, 2.7, it can automatically update to those newer versions. You can also use the tilde right here. And this allows updates that don't change the minor version, which is this 2.0 right here. So if there's a 2.0.1, 2.0.2, 2.0.3, it can automatically update those whenever you do update your dependencies. If you want to add a dependency with no upper bound on the dependency version, you can put your dependency inside quotes and do this > symbol equals and then the version number. Some terminals treat this > symbol differently, so you have to put this inside quotation marks. If you want to specify exactly the version that it has to be, you can use the double equals here. And this is the same as just using the @ symbol. You can also add development dependencies using the -- dev flag. Let's say you want to add PyTest into your project, but only for whenever you're running your tests. You don't need that in production, so we can do poetry add -- dev PyTest. That way, whenever we do make a production build, it won't be included. So we can go ahead and run this. If you are on a newer version of Poetry, it'll recommend you to do -- group, and then the group name, so dev, and then the package name. If you already have an existing requirements.txt file and you want to add it into your Poetry environment, you can do poetry add $ open parentheses cat requirements.txt. This won't work on Windows right out of the box, unless you have something like git bash installed. Then you can run it from the git bash terminal, and you can run this on Mac and Linux since it does support this syntax right out of the box. Poetry makes it really easy to update your dependencies based on your project specification just by simply doing poetry update. This command updates all dependencies to their latest versions based on your constraints in your pyproject.toml file. If a new version releases and your constraints allow you to update to it, then it will do that for you. And the poetry.log file is also updated to reflect these changes. If you just want to update one specific package and not all of them, you can specify the package name. If you want to remove a package, you just do poetry remove and the package name. To see a list of all installed dependencies and their versions, you can use the poetry show command. Whenever you go ahead and run this, it'll show all the dependencies that your project has. If you want to see more details about a specific package, you can use the poetry show command followed by the package name. So in this case, I'm doing poetry show requests, and it shows the package name, the version, a description of it, and all the dependencies that it has. You can use Poetry to run scripts or commands in your virtual environment without needing to activate it manually. And so you can do this by typing poetry run Python, and then the file name. So go ahead and run this, and it's subscribed to Zectech. And if we were to look inside this app.py file, it only has a print statement of subscribe to Zectech. If you want to work directly inside the virtual environment, you can activate it using Poetry Shell. And we can see we are inside our virtual environment. If you want to lock your dependencies, you can use the poetry lock command. This will go ahead and update your poetry.lock file. If you need to export your dependencies to a requirements file for use in environments that don't support Poetry, you can use poetry export -f requirements.txt -- output requirements.txt. And we can see there is a warning here saying that this export command won't be installed in the future. There are a couple different ways you can add this if it's not supported. You can run poetry self add poetry plugin export, and this will add it into your Poetry dependency. Or you could run pipx inject poetry plugin export, and this will also add it into your Poetry command. So if we go ahead and take a look at a requirements.txt file, it did go ahead and add this. So we can do a pip install -r requirements.txt file to go ahead and install all these dependencies for our system. And there you have it, your complete guide to using Poetry for Python project management. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up and share it with your fellow developers. If you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any other future Python tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.